The letter was written in pencil, soft, slightly smudged in places, the way only a child's determined hand could produce. It was folded with graded care, slipped into a plain white envelope, and addressed in careful block letters to two names she had only ever seen in credits at the end of action films: Mr. Alex Stone and Mr. Marcus Blade. Emily Tran, age 10, didn't expect them to read it. She didn't expect much of anything these days, not since the accident. But sometimes you wrote things not because you believed someone would read them, but because you needed to believe you still had something to say. That morning, Emily had wheeled herself to the mailbox outside her house with trembling hands. It was her birthday week. And even though she knew the odds were impossible, she dropped the envelope in as if sending it might make the world a little less heavy. Her mother didn't know. It was her secret, her quiet wish. Across the country, the world was loud. Celebrity charity events, red carpets, camera flashes. But tucked behind the stage of one modest martial arts showcase that evening, Alex Stone, with decades of martial discipline etched into his every step, removed his gloves and slumped into a folding chair. Beside him, Marcus Blade, stoic as ever, unwrapped the tape from his knuckles, his brow still furrowed from the crowd's energy. They had done this 1,000 times, demonstrations, speeches, signings. But tonight felt different. There had been a little girl in the front row, holding a homemade banner that read, "Black Belt in Heart." She hadn't cheered the loudest. She hadn't even stood up. She couldn't. But her eyes, they had a clarity Alex couldn't forget. Their manager came in moments later with a bundle of letters, fan mail collected from the audience. Alex barely glanced at them, too used to generic praise and photo requests. But one envelope stood out. No return address, no glitter, just intention. He read it once, then again, and then handed it wordlessly to Marcus. "Dear Mr. Stone and Mr. Blade, my name is Emily Tran. I'm 10 years old and I love martial arts more than anything. I know I'm not like most kids because I can't walk. I use a wheelchair and sometimes people stare. But when I watch your movies, I don't feel small. I feel like I can still be strong. My birthday is this Friday, and I know you're probably busy. But if there's any chance you could come to my party, even just for a minute, I think it might be the best thing ever. People say it's impossible, but I think impossible is just a word. Thank you for being my heroes. Love, Emily." Attached to the letter was a photo. A girl with bright almond-shaped eyes and a crooked smile sat in a wheelchair decorated with martial arts stickers, fists, dragons, yin-yang symbols. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail. Her t-shirt had Alex's face on it, mid-kick. The caption beneath read, "Still training." For a long moment, neither man spoke. "She's got fight," Marcus said finally. Alex nodded, his voice low. "She believes in us. But more than that, she believes in herself." Silence swelled between them like a tide. These were men who had stood on the world's biggest stages, who had fought villains on screen and trained with the best off it. But somehow, this letter had landed a strike that nothing else could. Marcus stood first. "So what do you think?" Alex looked at him, then down at the photo again. His voice was quiet but firm. "I think we're going to a birthday party." The next morning, while the rest of the world scrolled through highlights of last night's event, two legends made a different kind of plan. One without cameras, without announcements, without expectation. They called in favors, confirmed an address, and spoke softly with their staff. And as the sun rose over the quiet suburban neighborhood where Emily lived, her mother was still frosting cupcakes and taping streamers to the cafe wall, unaware that the impossible was already on its way. Emily thought no one would show up. She was wrong. Friday arrived like any other spring day, warm air, soft light, and the distant buzz of lawnmowers echoing through the suburbs. Emily Tran sat in front of the small mirror in her room, carefully brushing her hair. Her mother had offered to help, but she had insisted on doing it herself. Today wasn't just her birthday. Today was a statement. She was still her, chair or not. Downstairs, the cafe her mom had rented was already beginning to fill with color. Balloons and soft pastels, paper lanterns, and a homemade Happy Birthday Emily banner stretched above the counter. It wasn't grand. There were no hired clowns or just family, a few friends from school, a tray of cupcakes with blue frosting, and hope. Quiet, stubborn hope. Emily wore her favorite t-shirt, the one with Alex Stone mid-spin kick, signed in faded silver ink from a Comic-Con years ago. She didn't say it aloud, but in her mind she whispered, maybe. Maybe today's different. Across town, a black SUV was parked discreetly on the opposite side of the street. Inside, Alex Stone adjusted the brim of his baseball cap while Marcus Blade tapped the address into his phone one final time. Both wore plain clothes, hooded sweatshirts, sunglasses, masks. Not because they were hiding, but today wasn't about them. "This is the place?" Marcus asked. Alex nodded, glancing out the window. Through the cafe glass, he could see the decorations. A small group of kids was clustered around a table laughing. A woman, Emily's mother, was arranging the cupcakes with care. And at the center of it all was Emily, her wheelchair adorned with martial arts decals and pink ribbons. She was smiling. "She looks happy," Alex said. "She has no idea what's coming," Marcus replied, reaching for the door handle. But just before they could exit the vehicle, a sharp screech interrupted the moment. A police cruiser slammed to a halt in front of the cafe. The doors flung open, and 3 uniformed officers stepped out. One of them, Lieutenant Darren Cole, walked with an air that didn't belong at a child's birthday party. His jaw was tight, his voice already raised before the door even opened. Inside, conversations stilled. The music faded into the background as the officers entered. Emily turned her head, curious. Lieutenant Cole's eyes scanned the room before landing on her. "You can't sit there," he barked. The room froze. Emily blinked, confused. Her chair was positioned neatly beside a table. She wasn't blocking anything. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "You heard me," he snapped. "You're in the way of the emergency exit. Fire code violation. Move it." Her mother stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "She's not blocking anything, sir. I checked." "I don't care what you think," he snapped, now towering over Emily. "Move that chair." Emily's hands trembled as they gripped the wheels. I can't move it myself," she said, her voice small. Lieutenant Cole rolled his eyes. "Figures." Then, without warning, he grabbed the handles of her wheelchair and yanked it to the side. A soft cry escaped Emily's lips. A glass toppled. One of her friends dropped his cupcake. The joy was gone. In its place, fear. And then he slapped her. It wasn't enough to bruise, but the sound was sharp, deliberate, humiliating. "That's for giving me attitude," he growled. Gasps filled the cafe. Someone whispered, "Call someone." Others just stood frozen, stunned. And then the cafe door opened again. This time it wasn't with aggression. It was with silence. Alex Stone and Marcus Blade stepped inside. They removed their masks and sunglasses slowly, deliberately. The entire room inhaled. Lieutenant Cole turned, startled, his hand still hovering near Emily's face. Alex's eyes locked on him. Marcus's jaw tightened. No one said a word. They didn't need to. The balance of power shifted instantly. Not because of fame, but because of presence. These were men who didn't need a badge to command the room. Cole instinctively took a step back. "You just put your hands on a disabled child," Alex said, his voice low and even. "She was violating fire code," Cole shot back defensively. "She refused to comply." Marcus's voice followed, quieter, colder. "And so you assaulted her?" "This is police business," Cole snapped. "You're interfering." Alex didn't flinch. "No, you interfered with her dignity." Silence settled again, deeper now. Emily sat motionless, tears brimming, not from Henin, but from disbelief. Her heroes, her impossible heroes, were here, and they had walked in exactly when she needed them. This was no longer a birthday party. This was a reckoning. Lieutenant Darren Cole stood frozen, his hands slowly dropping to his side as if the air around him had grown heavier. The room remained still. No one moved. No one breathed. Behind him, Emily's mother had knelt beside her daughter, one hand trembling as it hovered over Emily's cheek, the other gripping the wheelchair's armrest like an anchor against a world that had just tilted off balance. Alex Stone took a slow, deliberate step forward, his boots creaking against the wooden floor. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Is there a reason?" he asked, voice edged like a drawn blade. "You thought it was acceptable to lay hands on a child?" Lieutenant Cole tried to smirk, but it was brittle, defensive. "She was non-compliant," he muttered, blocking an emergency path. "I was enforcing protocol." "By striking her?" Marcus Blade's voice sliced through the excuse like steel through silence. Cole straightened, puffing out his chest in a last attempt to reclaim his authority. "You both need to back off. This is a police matter. Interfere again, and I'll have you arrested." Marcus took one slow, measured step closer. "You just committed assault in front of 30 witnesses." From behind the officer, one of his partners shifted uncomfortably. The third looked down at the floor. They weren't intervening. They weren't defending him. They were waiting, watching. Emily, still gripping the wheels of her chair, whispered, "Mom, I'm okay." But her voice trembled with something more than fear. It was the shock of realizing that no one had stopped him. Not until now. Her mother cupped her face gently. "You're safe now, sweetheart." Lieutenant Cole tried to regain his footing. "You think being celebrities gives you the right to challenge law enforcement?" "No," Alex replied simply. "It gives us the responsibility not to stay silent when law enforcement forgets what justice means." The words struck like thunder. Cole's face twisted. "You don't know what it's like out here." Alex didn't blink. "I know what abuse of power looks like, and this," he motioned to Emily, "is not enforcement. This is bullying." Cole's restraint snapped. He reached for his baton, the motion sharp, aggressive. But Marcus had already moved. In one fluid motion, he grabbed Cole's wrist midair, twisted it with practiced precision, and disarmed him before the baton could even clear its holster. The weapon clattered to the floor. In a blur of controlled strength, Marcus turned the officer around, pinned him chest first against the wall, and locked his arm behind his back. There was a collective exhale in the cafe, a wave of realization that something sacred had just been defended. "You should have walked away," Marcus said quietly, "but now you're going to understand what accountability feels like." Emily's mother stared in disbelief. Her daughter was trembling, but not in terror anymore, in awe. The officer's partners remained rooted, hands raised, confused, unsure if they should intervene or let justice run its course. Alex stepped protectively in front of Emily's chair, standing between her and the officer like a human shield. "You had every chance to stop this," he said, addressing Cole's fellow officers, "but you watched." At that moment, the cafe door burst open again. 4 new officers entered swiftly, summoned by someone during the chaos. One wore the insignia of a commanding officer. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Cole, still red-faced, pointed at Alex and Marcus. "They assaulted me. They interfered with an arrest." Before the commanding officer could respond, Emily's mother stood, her voice no longer trembling. "He manhandled my daughter, who's disabled, threw her wheelchair aside, then slapped her in front of everyone." The cafe manager stepped forward. "We have it all on video, already downloaded the security feed." The senior officer's jaw tightened. "Secure the footage, we'll review it now." Marcus released Cole, who stumbled back, humiliated. As he tried to slip toward the exit, another officer blocked his path. "Where do you think you're going?" the commander asked sharply. Cole hissed, I won't be humiliated by washed-up action stars. He didn't finish the sentence, because at that moment, one of the responding officers stepped forward and quietly began cuffing him. You just made it worse for yourself. As Cole was led out of the cafe, boos rose from the bystanders. Some parents clapped, others filmed, but all eyes eventually turned to Emily. Tears glistened in her eyes again, but this time not from pain, from pride. Alex knelt beside her, his voice softer now. You asked us to come. Emily nodded, still stunned. And you came. Marcus leaned down beside them both. We always answer a call for justice. And for the first time in days, Emily smiled. Not the small, polite kind she used to protect others from her sadness, but the real one. The kind that said, I'm not alone anymore. The cafe had returned to a quiet hum, but something fundamental had shifted. The streamers still hung above the counter, the balloons still drifted lazily near the ceiling, and the frosting on the cupcakes was beginning to melt slightly in the warmth. But the mood was no longer that of a child's birthday party. It was something heavier, something deeper. The officer who had tried to silence her was now in handcuffs, and Emily Tran, still seated in her wheelchair, was now the most powerful presence in the room. The senior officer returned from reviewing the security footage. His face was somber but resolute. We've reviewed the tape, he announced. His conduct was inexcusable. Internal Affairs will be notified immediately and will be filing a full report. He looked toward Emily and her mother. I'm deeply sorry this happened. Before her mother could respond, Alex Stone stepped forward gently. There is something you can do. The officer looked confused. Of course, anything. Alex glanced at Marcus Blade, who gave a subtle nod. Let us take it from here. Emily's mother blinked. Take what? Marcus smiled for the first time that day, a soft, calming gesture. Let's just say her birthday's not over yet. They turned to Emily. Would you like to come with us, champion? Alex asked. Emily's eyes widened. She hesitated, then looked at her mom. Her mother's hands were still trembling, slightly, but she managed a smile. If you want to go, baby, go. I trust them. Moments later, cafe staff held the door as Marcus and Alex wheeled Emily out to the waiting black SUV. A small crowd had gathered. Neighbors, witnesses, people who had filmed the confrontation on their phones but now watched in reverent silence. Some clapped. Some simply stepped aside. No one said a word. The door closed behind her. The SUV pulled away, and Emily Tran's life would never be the same again. They drove quietly for a while. Emily sat between the rows of seats, her fingers brushing the armrests of her wheelchair, the echo of everything that had just happened still vibrating in her chest. Her cheek still tingled, slightly where she had been struck, but something inside her was different now. She no longer felt small. She no longer felt invisible. She looked down at her shirt, Alex mid-kick, Marcus in a defensive stance, and realized they weren't just characters on a screen anymore. They were real, and they had seen her. You doing all right back there, champ? Marcus asked, turning slightly. Emily nodded slowly. Better than all right. Alex caught her reflection in the rearview mirror and smiled. Have you ever been inside a real martial arts training facility? Her eyes lit up. No, is that where we're going? Marcus grinned. Told you, birthday's not over. The SUV rolled through the city, leaving behind the everyday chaos of sidewalks and intersections. They turned down a long tree-lined drive, where tall iron gates opened with a silent command. Beyond them stood a building that looked like something out of a dream, the American Martial Arts Heritage Center. Steel and stone, glass and wood, banner flags rippled along the entrance, each marked with ancient symbols of strength, balance, and honor. As they pulled up to the curb, Emily could barely breathe. Alex stepped out first, walking around the vehicle. He opened the door gently, then lowered the ramp. Marcus followed, helping guide her chair with ease. From inside the lobby, a woman in a sleek black G with a golden emblem stepped forward, her smile warm and radiant. "You must be Emily Tran," she said. "We've been expecting you." The doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside was another world. The lobby walls were lined with framed photos of martial arts legends, glass cases holding signed belts and trophies, and a bronze statue of Bruce Lee mid-kick gleaming beneath the soft spotlights. A digital screen above the reception desk flickered to life as they entered. "Welcome, champion Emily. Happy birthday." Emily gasped. Her mother, still in awe beside her, let out a soft cry. "Is this all for me?" Marcus leaned in and whispered, "Every inch of it." They passed through wide doors that opened into a grand training arena. The floor was padded wall to wall. The air smelled faintly of cedar and sweat, and in the center of the room stood a raised ring under a single spotlight. On a pedestal inside the ring was a custom championship belt, its gold plating polished to a brilliant shine. Two words were engraved across its center: Emily, unbreakable. Her breath caught in her throat. Emily's mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are," she whispered. "You always were." Alex looked down at her. "We wanted to make sure you know exactly what you are." Marcus nodded solemnly. Unbreakable. The lights in the training hall dimmed slightly, mirroring into a soft halo over the ring where the championship belt gleamed like something sacred. Emily Tran sat in silence, gazing at it from the base of the ramp that led to the platform. Her fingers rested on the arms of her wheelchair, still, but not afraid. A trainer approached with a warm smile. "We've built a custom ramp just for today. Do you want to go up?" Emily hesitated. She looked at her mother, who simply nodded, her eyes already full of tears. She looked at Alex Stone, who said nothing but offered his hand like an anchor. She looked at Marcus Blade, who whispered, "You don't have to prove anything. You already did. But if you want the world to feel what you feel, speak." Emily exhaled slowly, then nodded. With Alex on one side and Marcus on the other, she rolled forward up the ramp, every rotation of her wheels a quiet act of defiance against everything that had once made her feel small. As she reached the ring, the instructors in black and red uniforms stepped back respectfully, forming a loose circle around the platform. The belt was lifted carefully and placed in her lap. It was heavier than she expected. Real, solid, meant to be earned. She ran her fingers across the engraving. Emily, unbreakable. Then Alex stepped into the ring and handed her a microphone. "Say whatever you want," he said softly. "There's a whole room ready to listen." Emily stared at the mic for a long moment. Then she looked up, not at the lights, not at the cameras, but at the faces, trainers, instructors, her mother, her heroes. The same girl who'd been slapped in a cafe just 24 hours earlier now held the room's breath in her palms. Her voice, when it came, was soft, but clear. "I used to think strength was something other people had. People who could run, who could fight, who didn't sit in chairs like this. But today I learned something." She paused. The silence wasn't awkward. It was sacred. "I'm not broken. I'm not less. I'm not weak. I am unbreakable." The room erupted, not with noise but with meaning. Applause that carried more than admiration. It carried recognition, validation, truth. Her mother cried openly, a hand over her heart. Marcus wiped a hand across his face, pretending it was just sweat. Alex nodded solemnly. "That," he murmured, "was a black belt speech." The lead instructor stepped forward and gently handed Emily a velvet box. Inside was a necklace, a silver chain with a miniature championship belt as its pendant. On the back, engraved in clean, careful script, "Impossible is just a word." Marcus placed it around her neck. Emily touched it gently and whispered, "Thank you." A photographer stepped in to capture the moment. Emily seated tall, the belt on her lap, her necklace glinting under the lights. On either side, her protectors stood like sentinels. But they weren't protecting her anymore. She had become something else entirely. In the weeks that followed, Emily returned to the gym every Saturday, not as a guest, but as a student, a real student. Word spread. The video of her confrontation went viral. But more importantly, her story reached others. Kids in wheelchairs, teens with braces on their arms, veterans in rehab. They came not to watch her, but to train with her. A new program was launched, Adaptive Warriors, a martial arts initiative for youth with physical disabilities. Emily was its first student, then its face, then its mentor. She became more than a symbol. She became proof. Moral of the story: true strength isn't the absence of pain. It's the choice to rise through it. Emily was never weak. She was never broken. The world simply hadn't known how to see her yet. But when the system failed her, courage answered. When silence threatened her voice, justice walked in. And when others saw her for what she truly was, they didn't just clap, they followed. Because courage doesn't just survive, it spreads. And what began with a letter ended with a legacy. Unbreakable isn't just a title, it's a way of living, loud, proud, and seen.